This is Drew Spence from the Dynamic Universe, doing another one of those shows where I'm just gonna go off ahead and talk about a couple of things that have been creeping up that I see people asking about, and some of the conversations with some of my peoples. We're talking about two things. In the background, this is from one of my classes, one of the webinars that I did. This is me setting up a scene. So I did a webinar on kit bashing and building cities, landscapes, and structures. And behind me is me setting up a scene. Before I could actually start building the structure and the landscape, I had to do the human figures. So I actually picked two characters from my comic. This is Jackie 5 or J Nemesis with the robot Beta 2. And I just basically set up a platform so at least I could have some place to shoot the city from. So this is me working on that scene before I even did the class. So it's just running here in the background. You're seeing that with my overlay on the bottom. Not a big deal. One of the things that I see people keep asking me is when should you release your comic, and when should you start working on your series, and when should you start, sharing your work and being out there as an official artist with a comic series. And it's the same answer from music. As you all know by now, I parallel a lot of the things that I say from the music world into the comic world. And the truth is, when people ask me things like, well, when should my band release a record? When should I start selling beats and instrumentals and all of that stuff? And the usual answers when people say to you, where can I buy this? And it usually happens like it's different than your friends telling you, you should sell this. That's like the zero layer when your friends just give you business advice. Like you should print this up, or you should sell this. It's different when someone who wants to own it says, where can I buy? Or what do you charge for music? And that's when you kind of know you're ready. When someone says, well, where can I find your comic? Because a lot of people, they upload a concept, they upload a page, they upload some test art, they upload sketches, and it's always this perennial question of when should I actually begin and enter? And I feel like that's the actual answer, is when someone actually cares to purchase your end product. If no one's interested in obtaining or owning your end product, it's probably too soon to start pushing it out on everybody, because no one sees what you're doing as an end product. Now, of course, as an artist, I know we live inside our own head, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But really, that's the breaking point. When people actually desire whatever it is that you're creating, that's the time to start saying, okay, not that you're thinking I want to make money off of my art, but you're thinking I want to be compensated for the effort I put in my art. And that's a conceptual difference that some people, usually people with somewhat beginner type product say, I'm just in it for the art. And then when you look at a full artist that's ready, the thought process is I want to be compensated, because being compensated allows me to either A, gain more resources so I can do more when I have more, or B, it gives me free time to do and pursue this art, which is what most artists really want. They want enough resources to do more and better art, and they also want time to be able to devote to their art. That's pretty much what an artist is. I just want enough stuff to keep this going. I'm not concerned with a lot of the things, and some people are business orientated, where your thoughts 100% are about business. You don't really care about what it is you're creating. You just know you want to sell something. And that's a different conversation for another day. But really, that's what it's about. When should I start? When you're basically ready to start. On the other end, there's a technical aspect of it, right? Your critiques need to be about the creative decisions you made. I decided to do this, I decided to do that, I decided to do this other thing. And people are saying, well, I don't agree with your decision to do this. I don't agree with your ideas about that. I wish you had made the story about this. I wish you had put this in it. I wish you had gone in this direction. That's like pure stuff and general, just, people having their own creative visions of what you could be doing. which is different from a technical part where someone says, this is hard to read, this doesn't translate well, I can't tell what's going on, which character is speaking, this scene following this scene, I can't understand it, this panel confuses me, what's happening now, I got lost, how does he have the sword, he didn't have it before, how does he end up behind the other character when he was standing in front? Those are technical issues. You know, this character sounds like this person saying this. Or why is this person saying this? It doesn't make sense. Why are they talking so much in this moment? This is a split second of action. Why do they have 9 sentences coming out the character? Doesn't make sense. I'm confused. Those are technical things about your ability to tell stories. When people can't understand what you're trying to do, that goes down as a technical problem, not a creative problem. That's a technical problem. And I know for many times when it comes to creativity, we sort of just say, you know what, I'm a creative, nothing else matters. And I feel like that's one of those bridges that we get to the meat of this episode that I'm talking about. The meat of this is that once you release your art, it's no longer yours. And I feel like a lot of artists struggle with that concept, where this is quote unquote your baby, or my characters are my children. And you have this thought in your head where I must protect my brand. I must defend. If someone says my art is A, I've got to tell them that no, you're wrong, and I've got to fight for it. Because somehow you're taking your work so personally, everything offends you. If someone says your art sucks, you're going to have a heart attack because you're taking everything personal. And to explain it, you should be taking your art personal when you're making it. Like, that's the moment and the time to take it personal. That's when you should really care about your ability to tell your story and generate your art and convey your message. That's the moment to take it personal and pour yourself into it and give it that 110%. But once you release it and say, okay, this is now for public consumption, and I don't care if you mean it's going to go on a big site that sells comics like Comixology, or you're going to sell it with a subscription service, that would be issue. You're going to sell the books themselves, that would be Amazon or Indie Planet, or you're going to drive through comics. That's another site that I have my books on. Draw Me In Comics, that's another physical site that sells the PDFs. Those are, I didn't mean physical site like they sell it. They sell the digital version of the PDF, which is basically the print version of your book, but sold as a PDF. In those contexts, you're basically giving birth to it and saying, okay, this is for the world to consume. And the world gets to decide whether this is awesome or it sucks. And that's kind of how it works. You don't really get a middle ground. You get to say, that would be the amateur level. And if you're on the amateur level, then pretty much disregard what I'm saying, because you're probably not sharing your work. But we do find a weird sort of parallel where someone wants to be an amateur, but get professional results and response. So you put your book out there like a professional and you say, hey, this is my book. You're not saying it's a work in progress. You're saying, hey, check out my series. And then whenever anyone disparages your work, you jump behind the walls, which is, also part and parcel to the paradox, where you do a web comic, which is like the free version of a comic. And if anyone belittles it or say it's not as good as it should be, you jump into the idea that it's free, you're not that serious, you're really part-time, you're not a pro, and all these things sort of build to the idea which is called an excuse, right? Why isn't this better? It's an excuse. Instead of eating it and say, hey, well, this is where I'm at with my art, I'm going to get better over time. You're basically finding the medium as your scapegoat. It's not me, it's the medium. I'm not paid. It's me. And the truth is, whatever you want to do in life, you're going to do for free at a professional level without getting paid. Like, that might be another one of those moments in this whatever it is that I'm doing, that you get a real heavy nugget of truth. That whatever it is that you want to do for a living or as your highest ambition, you're going to have to do it for free at a professional level before you start getting compensated for your work. I have met many artists who say, I'll give that kind of output when I get paid. Or I'll give that kind of output when I get a publisher. Or I'll give that kind of output when I do it full time. And the truth is you don't have an understanding of it, because you have to have that level of output before you even get entered into the gate. No one's going to give you that shot in such a world of fierce competition. And forget about thinking artist versus artist. It's even the attention of the readership that you're competing over. Why read your book that's unfinished and unpolished and being worked on? Because wherever you put your work, there's 10 other options that any reader or artist could be looking at instead. Why would I stick with yours when it's not ready? So for every excuse that you've got, there's someone else who's doing it at a pro level for free or giving me easy access. So when you say, I'll do better music when I get a record deal, there's a guy already doing better music without a record deal. So when it comes to it, no one's going to trust that at some point you can gain that level of being a professional. They're going to assume that you're just a raw, uncut diamond in the rough and you're not ready yet. Whereas someone else who's already producing professional level work, they can say, okay, this guy deserves a shot. If we just pour resources behind him, we can multiply the success he's already got. And again, they're multiplying the success you've already got. Not so much they're going to take you from being raw and help you develop, but they're going to cash in on your already established or shown abilities. Your already achieved accomplishments, what they're going to build upon, not start from scratch. So the excuse part of it is more of a reason to be overlooked than sort of a reason to be given a break. I think I did edit this to make sure that we didn't see Jackie from the front. And I do remember working on this and being aware. I'm going to have to probably look at this again when I start to edit it and make sure that we kept this as clean as I think. I know you pervs out there like, turn her around. No, I won't, you mug. But anyhow, that's the idea about it. So when you look at reviews and critiques, you take it very personal because you still believe it's yours. Whereas if you could adapt to the mindset that once I finish my art, it's yours. If someone says it sucks, it does suck. Because that's what they think, that's what they feel. Let them have that moment. Not every person on the planet must be you. We, or I at least, geek over my own work. Like I see my stuff and I go, oh my God, this is crazy. I just read one of my stories tonight, which is the one with Jackie and Beta with the artist. And I'm reading it. I'm looking at the last line in it. I'm looking at some of the exchange between the characters and I'm saying, this is masterful. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is my book. This is crazy. I wrote this. Oh my God. What must they be like reading this? And when you see your sales coming in and you're happy about your sales, you're like, yeah, I'm glad I pushed it that hard. Like, I'm glad I'm taking this seriously and trying to actually accomplish something because, when you see the return, it's a very nice thing to happen. And I think sometimes, instead of just hiding behind the idea of I'm not so serious, sometimes it's better to actually be serious so that you can let your work go. Get it to a state of being ready and then let it go. If a reader puts a rude comment, that's okay. You've always got to throw out the bottom and the top. And this is another gem for this one. The bottommost comment is, you suck, you're horrible, I hate books like this, I hate this style. Because again, styles make fights. Once you get past technical flaws, it's all about just the style. So anyone can like any style. A guy could draw something that you think is crap or render something that you think is garbage, but any reader could like that more than whatever you're doing. No matter how great you think it is, styles make fights. And sometimes people ask me, well, why is it you respect every type of art? What is it? Because you do this, somewhat more realistic CGI thing. Why do you like some of these kids' sketches and regular drawings? I used to sketch and draw, so that's my background. I didn't start out doing CGI comics. I did everything. I started to draw first, then I wanted to get into painting, so I played with that, trying to get a bit more realistic. Then I started taking actual pictures themselves and cutting them up into making my comics. Some of them were actually scenes from videos that I had shot. Other ones were me just collecting bits and pieces and using a lot of Photoshop editing. And now I'm sort of doing the CGI, which to me is just another style. That I like the CGI experience. I like how it works. I like it. So, I can respect anyone's creative hustle. I like anyone who's working on their stuff and putting in that work and their due diligence. So it's really about, understanding the process of telling a story and how it goes. But at a certain level, you accept the fact that styles make the fight and it doesn't matter. That you can like something that's poorly drawn, you can like something that's greatly drawn, you can like stuff that's simple, you can like stuff that's complicated. It all just barrels down to a style. And if you like a style, you're going to love it. If you like an artist and what they've done, or they've hit you in the head with a big story, readers are subjective. I told you that in my other video. That you really can't argue with someone's subjective opinion. If you're getting a review or a critique or whatever it is, and there's wrong information, then that's worth debating. If someone's categorizing your work and they have details and facts wrong, it could be timing, it could be a technique you used, it could be, what you were trying to do, if they go too far with guessing what was on your mind. But for the most part, the opinion should land. If they, this person just thinks your stuff stinks. And I see that there's a true fragility to these artists where, like, anything that's against you're the greatest is taken as an insult. Why is it so hard to accept that you might not be as great as you think you are? Why is it wrong to accept the idea that you're at your beginner mark and that this is year 1, year 2, year 3, and you're going to get better by year 4, 5, and 6? And by year 7, you're going to be on another level. What thing do you do in life that you look back at year 1 and don't think you've gotten better by year 2? What thing can you name that you don't get better every year you do it? So why is it so offensive to tell someone, well, this is your first year effort. This is your second year effort. And yeah, you're going to get better over time. Why is that such an offensive concept to the current climate? That as an artist, you don't want to develop and get better. And if anyone says anything bad about your stuff, let's talk about the paradox. The paradox usually is that a lot of artists try to insulate themselves by just not caring about what anyone says, which is sort of like, the anti-point of doing art, right? If art is for yourself and it's all about you and your expression, then you shouldn't be sharing it. It should be on your hard drive, or it should be, under a blanket in your garage, because that's just for you and only you see it. You can't release it on the internet and share it and say, hey, everybody, check out my work. And then when anyone has an opinion on it, you run and hide behind the idea that it's mine and can't anyone say anything about it because, F them, it's my art and I know what I'm doing. And it really is a paradox that you can't really say that, but at the same time, give it to somebody. People are going to be free. There's clowns on the internet. We know that. The YouTube comment. People will be rude just because, that's their universe. The joke is to make as insulting a comment as possible. Can I insult this in a clever way? I'm going to get likes for it. So we understand that there's a segment of the people that can react to your stuff as negative as possible because there's credit. It's a joke, and it's funny when someone says something insulting about your work and they're dead on and they crack on something. That's a cute, sarcastic kids in the back row thing of a classroom. It's juvenile, but everyone's been there. You're in the back of the classroom and the point is to make fun of everything. You're at the party and the goal is just insult everybody and everything. I get it, and it's funny, it's hilarious if you're in that circle. So I understand why comments tend to pitch downward. But at the same time, let's be realistic. You should know the value of your work, and you should be able to handle that criticism because you have to throw out the bottom end and throw out the top end. If someone says you're a god, you're the ultimate illustrator, they've never seen anything like this, you're revolutionizing the market, all of that could be true. But it also could be just someone who's a fan of your work, who already likes everything you do. So no matter what you create, and you'll know whether when you're on point and you're killing the game, and when you're sort of walking through the motions. And when their reaction is the same, when they're screaming for everything, it's basically they like you as a person and they're into you. So therefore, everything you do is gonna cause a reaction that's not quite as legitimate. Someone who's a fan likes everything no matter what it is. What you do want to focus on areas of improvement, things that add on. And I told you before about, the critiques come from. There's a peer review, which is in other words, what I would do. If I was the guy working on this, I would. And that is someone speaking to you as a creative. And that goes in a certain box. This guy is telling me what he would do if this was his brand or his IP. All right, his intellectual property. He's telling me what he would do. That's as good as just hearing what one of your friends up here would do with your work. But they're not the ones that own it. So that opinion only goes so far. Readers, it either connects or it doesn't connect. I didn't understand this part. I didn't get it here. This whole direction didn't make sense. I thought you were taking the story here and then it went here. The ending was short. The ending was long. I thought there was going to be a part 2. I feel like the ending went on for a very long time with nothing happening. All of that matters. All of that matters. So it ought to be there. And that should register. People who like your stuff and would like it more if you made changes. Someone who hates your stuff isn't going to like it no matter what. So there's really no point in going 180 degrees to please them. You make a book about one thing and they say they hate that genre, it doesn't make sense to go chase that person. Right? So it's really the person who likes your stuff and they would like it more if you gave them some changes and fixed a couple of things. That might be the person that's worth listening to. And someone who's into everything you do builds up a false sense of security and it stops you from growing. When you begin to believe the hype, you stop growing because your thought process is, I'm the best at this. I can't learn anything else. I'm just going to keep going in my linear direction. And success usually brings that. It's hard to tell someone who's successful that they could be more successful by giving them suggestions and pointers. So that's another thing in itself. But yeah, I think I know what we're going to go into next, but let's just close this out. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Apparently, this actually looks pretty good. Yeah, this was me testing the scenes in Daz Studio. That's what I'm working on with my 3D characters. Yeah, that's what this is. Jackie 5 and Beta 2. So working on some background images. That was done for the course that I did on building things from scratch, doing a lot of kit bashing, adding different pieces of different products, some surprising. In this particular webinar that I did, which was the kit bashing one, I actually generated some shapes from scratch. So I basically showed how to build a structure from raw data, just raw 3D clay for free. Because there's a lot of sculpting programs out there. Some of them are even free, but this is more geared towards the Daz users who are somewhat wetting their feet when it comes to generating 3D content. And of course, if you use Daz Studio, you'll already have a heavy budget for your 3D assets. So just adding more is not always the asset. The answer. You can't always just keep saying, well, buy some more stuff. Because at some point, your budget starts to bump against, your overhead. And it gets crazy. So you got to sometimes maximize what you already have as resources. That's what the course was about. How to maximize your current set of resources. But that was a course that I did for Digital Art Live magazine. That's my webinar. It's actually in the Daz store. That's D-A-Z. If you're sort of brand new and don't know what the Dynamic Universe is about. And my comic book series, which is 4-6. You're looking at 4-6 comic series. That's what this is from. These scenes and most of this stuff is. But these are based on some of the products from the Daz store. Some of the other vendors, I do have products, but that's what this was about. So, in conclusion, I'm not sure exactly what I should call this one. Maybe I'll just call it, like, once you release it, it's not yours, because that's really what breaks you out, the mindset of taking everything so personal and being so scared. We like to say that artists should get out of their own way. And this is part of it. Adopting a mindset where you can take criticism. Adopting a mindset that once you release it and you say it's done, the time to take it personal is before you put it out there. That's the time to be sensitive. That's the time to care about every little piece of your art. That's the time to work on your text, work on your thought balloons, work on your graphics, work on the flow of your story, your sequential art. That's the time to really own it and call it yours. Once you say this is done and you put it up on the internet or you print it out or you send it to somebody for a review, at that point you have to let it go and accept that what comes back is an evaluation of where you were at. Doesn't mean you're not going to improve. You won't make different creative decisions. Your work is a snapshot of where you were. And if you're embarrassed by your early snapshots, it probably means you shared a little bit too early. That you really were still incubating, you were still developing, but you ran out here and started running around. That's why for many artists to get around this, I usually say do something else first. Don't do your, 90,000 issue epic as your first comic. Like, get something short in to understand the process. Learn. It'd be crazy that your first project is the one that you think you're going to be pitching to the world. It doesn't quite make sense. As a writer, you've written lots of stories before you submit a novel to a publisher. It just seems that sometimes with the web being so accessible, people don't really go through that incubation period. Like, they want to grow before your eyes. So the first thing I ever create, I'm sharing like it's finished, and I'm very sensitive. Because it's my first work, I'm very protective of it. And sometimes you have to just let that go. But that should be it. I think most of you were swift enough to catch it the first time I said it. I think that's what this episode is going to be about. Once you release it, it's not yours. I have an interest in this art stuff, doing both music and art. I've certainly enjoyed it over the years, so I have a lot to say on the subject. That's it. Drew Spence from the Dynamic Universe. The series is 4-6, The Annihilators, and Killer Butterfly. Available on all the different platforms. Thank you very much for watching. The usual stuff everybody says. Subscribe, like, link, share, all of that stuff. Hit me with some feedback. We'll talk. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.